I'm going to answer 3 questions that may change your mind about postal contracting with the Postal Service. The first is the Postal Service moving away from mail contractors? And I get this question a lot. And from time to time, you're going to have postal contracts that will reverted back to the Postal Service, as well as some Postal Service contracts that get reverted over to postal contracts. And the reason for that is depending on the classification of the particular route, and the requirements could change, that could cause that. But it's very even change, as far as there isn't probably, I wouldn't say more so one than the other. The next is, as long as the Postal Service needs to turn a profit, mail contractors will be around. We provide them additional savings. As you guys heard from the Senate committee, that they probably see the post office actually needing to go more privatized as far as the companies that they're currently using, and shrink their actual labor workforce because of the unions and so forth. Now, also in regards to that, the workforce for the Postal Service, the unions also have a lot of restrictions on how mail can move because of the different stipulations in their union contracts. Since 2021, there has been over $5 billion spent per year on OTR transportation. There's roughly 5,500 last mile suppliers that contract with the Postal Service have now, and probably close to nearly 10,000 privatized companies that actually contract with the Postal Service. So there's a lot of work that would need to be done if they ever choose to go away. And like the Senate meeting was stating, they're already losing money. Any further work that they would take away from contractors would only add to that, and not basically diminish that. The next question is, do you have to have multiple vehicles to be awarded a contract? And that's a misconception also. No, you can have a single vehicle. And in regards to that, you just have to be able to have the means to actually go out and get the vehicle. So you don't necessarily have to have a vehicle prior to the award, but you just have to have the means, whether that be renting, leasing, or purchase, to go out and get one. And they have a lot of contracts which are single vehicle, basically / owner operator contracts. So there are the larger carriers who deal with the multiple vehicle contracts. They're generally not going to get into the single vehicle contracts because they have added cost as far as their workforce, their office staff, and different things that an owner operator can show savings to the Postal Service. And you're only allowed one contract as an owner operator for the Postal Service, and then you have to use hired drivers. The next question I get a lot, and this is kind of a multi-answer question, but generally people want to know what can I expect for my rate per mile or my earnings for the year for a contract. And what I have to let everyone know is, because I hear a lot of times, 6-figure, 7-figure contracts thrown out. And yes, there are a lot of those, but understand the pay has to match the scope of work. And so what I mean by that is, you have situations, and we operate contracts like this, where maybe you're only doing 2 to 4 hours, 2 to 3 hours a day. We have routes where you only actually do 2 days a week. And so those types of contracts, 2 days a week, 3 to 5 hours, are you really going to be getting a 6-figure salary for doing that? So that's why I have to tell people, and it all basically comes down to the hours, the mileage, and the wages. So the wages are capped out depending on the area you're in, and the Department of Labor, U.S. Department of Labor determines that. But that's really not anything you can get away from. And so the mileage, like you said, probably the shorter the mileage is on a particular route, the higher the rate per mile is. The further out you go, the lower the rate per mile is. Are you doing highway miles as far as transportation? Are you, or is your route compacted during rush hour? So a lot of those things take factors, but it's not just as easy as saying I'm going to go get a 6-figure or 7-figure contract. And generally, the CDS contracts, depending on the hours, will determine that. Just for FYI for you to know, the 2,080 hours is equivalent to a 40-hour week. So anything probably above that, now you're looking at additional time, which can actually turn in, to additional revenue, dealing with the hours and so forth. So I always give people that example. Generally, you deal with trucks, the transportation side, depending on if it's a box route or a semi, depending on the actual mileage that's covering, you could have, you could go into a certain classification. So all those things have to take into account. I basically, I state to people all the time that contracts are inclusive, meaning that they're going to pay you for everything. So it's kind of where you have to take the mindset of and making sure that you can document and provide documentation for these additional costs that may cost you to run it. And that's where, you can't just basically throw something out on a piece of paper and think that the Postal Service is going to just agree to it. Sometimes they consider costs to be excessive, and you have to basically validate them. So for that reason, that can change. I tell people, all the time also, in regards to the freight, the transportation side and the CDS side, dealing with courier service and so forth, that the Postal Service is generally going to be pretty high as far as for that industry dealing with that particular lane. Now, all those CDS routes, it's kind of hard to compare them to something, maybe, Amazon last mile delivery and so forth. But that's kind of where the basis to start at. So that is just, the 3 answers. Hopefully it's giving you a little more information to make you make that jump to become a postal contractor. And also make sure to comment down below, like the video, subscribe so you can get updates on the next video that I may have, and leave a comment. And if you do decide to subscribe, make sure in the comments you tell me so I can go ahead and reach out. Thank you very much.